There's a lot of anticipation and great expectations for the 2023 version of the Penn State Nittany Lions. Can these Nittany Lions have the best season? Can they be the best team of the James Franklin era in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania? Before we get into that, just a reminder to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Big Ten content all offseason long. Always crush that like button to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses. When you talk about these Nittany Lions, the 2023 squad going out there, can they have the best season? Can they be the best team at Penn State since 2014? I think you got to talk about 4 seasons. You got to talk about 4 teams. Last season, of course, 2022, only blemishes were losses to Michigan and losses to Ohio State. I'll get to that point here later on in the video. You got to talk about 2019, that great season. Where Sean Clifford really came onto the scene. You look at Micah Parsons, of course, doing his thing on defense and how he's been able to translate that 2019 season into a great NFL career. So far, you got to look at 2019. I think this 2023 team is a little bit more talented than what they had in 2019. I mentioned Drew Allar. I think he's going to be an upgrade at the quarterback position from Sean Clifford. Of course, what they have in that backfield has only been rivaled to the teams I'm going to talk about here in just a minute from 2016 and 2017, and then you look at the talent on defense as well. I believe this 2023 team, the competition that they have in terms of being the best team, having the best season in Penn State history since 2014, is those 2016 and 2017 teams. Of course, the 2016 won the Big Ten title. Of course, you had Trace McSorley. Of course, you had Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley rushing for over 1,400 yards that season and just was all sorts of electricity every time he touched the football. Here's the thing about 2016. That was the only year, that was the only time since Franklin has been on campus that Penn State has beaten Ohio State. Followed up 2017, lost by Ohio State by just a single point in that absolute classic of a football game in Columbus. And then they followed it up the very next week, I think, by losing by about 3 points, I believe, at Michigan State. They came that close to possibly going undefeated, that close to maybe winning back-to-back Big Ten titles, that close to maybe going to the college football playoff. But if the 2023 team wants to be recognized as the best team, having the best season in Penn State history under James Franklin, they got to take that close and they got to get over the hump. That's the big thing. That's why people look so fondly in blue and white country, in Lion country of that 2016 team, because that was the team. That was the only team that's been able to get over the hump. That's the only team that's been able to beat Ohio State. Penn State's under James Franklin, a combined 4-13 versus Michigan and Ohio State. That's the big thing. That's the big point I want to make for Penn State going forward. If the Nittany Lions are truly going to make the jump, 2023, maybe 2024, if Penn State is really going to rise amongst the elite and be a player in college football playoffs for years to come, you've got to beat Michigan or Ohio State. You got to get it done against them. The one knock, well, there might be a couple knocks, but at least the one knock against James Franklin, he hasn't been able to win the big one. He hasn't been able to beat a lot of really good teams. His record against ranked teams is not very good as well. That's what Penn State needs to focus on. If they want this team to really be as good as they can be, to be as good as 2016, to be as good as 2017, you got to beat Ohio State. You got to beat Michigan. You got to be one of those 2 teams. But, man, the Buckeyes and the Wolverines are just so good right here, right now. Now, when you're comparing like Drew Allar to Trace McSorley specifically. McSorley, had back-to-back seasons where he threw for over 3,000 yards in the high 20s and touchdowns? I love Drew Allar. I think Drew Allar is going to be a step up at this position. I just don't know. We're sitting here in April. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, Drew Allar is going to throw for 3,530 touchdowns in his very first year as a starting quarterback. It's very difficult for me to say that. Trace McSorley is one of the best to ever do it at Penn State. And I believe I'm a Drew Allar fan. I believe in terms of talent, Drew Allar is one of the best and maybe the most talented quarterback to ever walk through the doors of Beaver Stadium. But as we sit right here in April, it's very difficult to predict that. Of course, we saw last year with those two freshman running backs. Everybody talks about the sophomore slump. Not saying it's going to happen. I, in fact, think they're going to be more explosive this season. Nick Singleton, although he might not be as big as maybe a Saquon Barkley, he has the electricity of a Saquon Barkley. And Katron Allen is a lot better than the number 2 backs that they had. He's a lot better, I think, at this point than a guy like a Miles Sanders. So can this Penn State team be as good as 2016? Can they be as good as 2017? Right here in the right now, I don't think so. I think it's very tough for me to say that because of the quarterback position. I believe Drew Allar is going to be really, really good. I feel like it would be irresponsible of me to say he's going to put up those types of numbers in this offense. He's going to have the weapons to do so. He's going to be able to lean on that running game. He's going to be able to lean on, the receivers that they have in place with Keandre Lambert-Smith. You saw what he can do in the deep pass game in the Rose Bowl. You look at Dante Cephas, who's going to come in, I believe, who's going to be one of the biggest impact transfers in the Big Ten Conference this year. You look at Theo Johnson at tight end, who's poised to break through and be one of the best at that position in the Big Ten Conference this season. He has all kinds of weapons throughout this offense, and Drew Allar will do good. Just how good is the question, I think, for Penn State. I firmly believe, and I've been saying this for a while, 2024 is the year of the Nittany Lion. That's when guys like Abdul Carter, Drew Allar, Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton will be true juniors. And that's when you're really going to see them explode. That's also the year that USC joins the conference, and with the big boys that they've been stacking up and recruiting in the transfer portal, it might be pretty difficult for Penn State. But I always believed 2024 was the year where Penn State could really break through. You see what Michigan might lose after this year. You see what Ohio State might lose after this year. I've always believed that 2024 would be the year of the Nittany Lions. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think this 2023 team at Penn State University will be the best team, have the best season of the James Franklin era? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.